What's going on, next family, next students? Pastor Preston back with you for week 6 of our last week in our series, Villains. And what we're doing is we're looking at villains in the Bible and learning from their mistakes and learning what not to do based on how they acted in their stories. In week 1, we talked about how each of us, because of sin, are villains in somebody else's story. In week 2, we talked about Cain and Abel and how Cain's anger got the better of him and he ended up killing his brother. In week 3, we talked about King Saul's pride and how that led to disobedience, not listening to God, and that resulted in him being removed as king and David taking over. 2 weeks ago, we talked about the Apostle Paul and his redemption story, going from killing Christians to becoming a Christian to now doing the greatest work of our faith outside of Jesus that we've ever seen. Last week, we talked about Judas and his betrayal, how it wasn't just a one-time decision, how he chose to betray Jesus every day for 3 years, and how his story had so much potential but ended up in such a tragic ending. This week, we're going to be talking about King Herod the Great and about how his power was so important to him and how power can be a good thing in some cases, but in most cases, how power leads to a terrible life full of nothing but issues. So when I mention the word powerful leader, who comes to mind right away? For you, maybe it's the president, maybe it's your principal, maybe it's your teacher, maybe it's your parents, maybe it's a boss at the place that you work. When I say powerful leader, who comes to your mind? And it can be different for each one of us. When we find and see Herod the Great first in the Bible, we see that he actually lived a very privileged life, very rich life. His dad was actually king before he was. And so he grew up in a household where he had everything he could ever want, all the food he could want, all the toys he could want, all the resources he could want, all the money he could want. Anything Herod wanted, he got as a child. And so when his dad passed away and died, the way it worked back then is your firstborn son would take over as king. And so that's what happened. When Herod the Great's dad died, he took over as king. When you look at the movie Toy Story 3, right, and I've only watched it a couple of times, but you see the villain in that story is called Lotso the Bear. And when you look at Lotso's life and his backstory, which we get a peek into, you see why he ended up becoming the way he was. Lotso, it was a nice, cuddly, great toy bear that was lovable, caring all his life until he was abandoned by his owners. And when he was abandoned, that made him become bitter, become angry, become resentful, and that's ended up how he became a villain. And when Buzz and Woody and the gang are trying to escape his evil toy empire kingdom, he tells them, and I find this quote so true to what we're talking about today, he says, "We're all trash, we're all waiting to be thrown away," in reference to toys, right? So he has this complete mindset of we're all trash, we're going to be thrown away at some point, it doesn't matter now or later. And I think if we're honest with his story and honest with what we'll get to in Herod's story, is that insecurity and that issue and that bitterness turned into him becoming a villain and using his power for evil instead of good. And so when we look at Herod the Great's story, when we first meet him in the Bible, we see that he was king over the land that Jesus was born in. So when Jesus was born, the land that he was born in was ruled by Herod the Great. So he was king over that land. And so Herod the Great got word that the Messiah may have just been born. And when he found that out, he sent out some wise men to go and see if that was true. They wanted to find out the truth. And he said, if you find out either way, come back and report it to me. And so the wise men went out, they found out that Jesus had been born. And that night when they were sleeping, an angel came to them in their dreams. And the angel said, hey, that information that you just got, don't go tell it to Herod. Don't give that information to him. Don't tell him anything. And then an angel also went to Joseph and Mary that very night and said, hey, you need to take your son Jesus and you need to flee this land. You need to go to Egypt. You need to get out of here and don't come back until Herod the Great is dead. So Herod the Great ended up finding out that the Messiah had actually been born already. So when he found out that the wise men had tricked him and told him the wrong information, he got pissed off. I mean, he got so mad. So what did Herod the Great do when he found out that the people he sent out had lied to him? Well, this just shows you how crazy this dude was, right? How insane he was. He sent out his army, his militia, to put in an order that any male child that is 2 years and younger should be murdered immediately. He basically put out an order of a mass execution of all 2-year-old or younger male babies. And when you look at that, you're like, golly, this dude is crazy, right? And he was. And the crazy part is it stemmed from his insecurity of not wanting anyone to take his position as king. I mean, you got to think, how insecure do you have to be that a 2-year-old boy is making you worried and making you tremble in your boots that they may take your spot, because he knew what the Bible had said about the Messiah, that the Messiah would raise up and would take a position of power, and he was scared that was going to be his position. And so that's why he's trying to make sure that the Messiah is, put to death immediately. And here's another example of just how crazy this dude was and how much he loved his position as king. When he was coming to the end of his life, because of physically he was just dying, mentally he was so stressed out and worried about the Messiah 24/7. When you write your will to leave for your family after you die, that basically says all my stuff, this portion could go to my brother, this portion can go to my wife, this portion goes to my kids, and it basically lays out for lawyers, divvies up how your money and your resources will be dispersed after you die. Well, with Herod, he said, he started rewriting his will like 3 or 4 times, and eventually he got so tired of trying to rewrite his will that he just said, you know what, I'm going to handle this right now. So what did he do? He ordered that his own firstborn son be murdered and be killed. Now, again, why is that so important? Because like I said in the beginning, the way it was back then, your firstborn male son, or of course a male and a son, but your firstborn son was going to take over after you died as king. He hated the idea of anyone taking his position as king, even his own son, that he had his own son killed so that he couldn't be king after he died. And this just gives you an insight into the insecurity that Herod had as king and his power that he clinged to like it was nobody else's business. What I found in my life, and this is just my experience, and maybe it is for you too, that a lot of people who use and cling to their positions, whether the positions of power or not, typically are the most insecure people, right? The people who are always saying, I'm the principal, you have to listen to me, or I'm the teacher, you have to listen to me, or I'm your boss or your supervisor, you need to do what I say and don't ask me any questions. A lot of the people who want to have those positions, and when you talk to even maybe some of your coworkers, like, I can't wait to try to be a manager, I can't wait to try to do this, this, and this. A lot of times the people I've run into in life, professionally and personally, who want positions of authority a lot and power all the time, they talk about it, they want it, usually are the most insecure. And once they get those positions, they never want to give them up. They want to use their positions of power to make whatever they want to happen. And I think we see that in politics a lot today too. But how does that play into our lives today as Christians, right? So when we look at Jesus had the ultimate position of power in all of eternity. He was God in the flesh. He was God. He had authority over every living thing today, yesterday, and forever. He has authority over all of us for all eternity. And how did he choose to use his position of power? Well, we look at the Bibles and we look at the gospel stories. He healed people. He did miracles. He took in the broken. He did miracles. He fed 5,000. He walked on water. He served people. He loved people. He gave people mercy. He gave them grace. He didn't judge or condemn them, but wanted the best for them and gave them mercy and grace. He used his position of power to help and bless others. Now, again, not all positions of power are bad. I don't want you to think just because someone has power or authority over you, like your parents or like your teacher or like your principal or like your boss at your work, that means they're automatically a terrible person and insecure. But what I am saying is that how they choose to use that position of power tells a lot about them and how they see their position in itself, right? A lot of people take positions of power to make sure that they serve and have everyone serve them. Jesus took a position of power so that he could serve others, so that he could love others, give them mercy, give them grace. That's what he calls you and I to. That's what he calls everybody to use our lives, to use our power, to use our influence, to help others, to love them, to serve them, and to sacrifice for them. So hopefully this talk on devotion on power has been encouraging to you, that maybe we should use our lives to serve people instead of have people serve us. And hopefully that doesn't allow us to become villains in somebody else's story. I hope that when you look back at all 6 weeks of this devotion, it's a reminder that we have to be careful, we have to be intentional with how we use our lives and how we live our lives, or else we can seriously slip really quickly into doing wrong and to becoming villains in somebody else's story. Next, students, a couple of announcements really quickly. First off, this Sunday coming up, August 30th from 5 to 7 p.m., we will be having our back to school cookout here at FPC. We're just gonna grill out, have some food, hang out, have some games in the yard and the field, and we're just gonna get together and have some fun to kind of de-stress as we're going back into what is already a stressful situation and starting school over again in the midst of this pandemic. So I hope that you'll come. I hope you'll invite your friends. It's from 5 to 7 here at FPC. Secondly, make sure you're filling out our forms for our Adventure Park Day. We're going Saturday, September 19th. to Adventure Park in Virginia Beach, Virginia as a group, as a ministry. It's basically an in the ropes course. If you want more information on what that looks like, go to www.myadventurepark.com and you can see their website, what it's all about. We're going to be there for the glow in the dark night, so it's going to be fun. It's going to be awesome. If you want to participate, you need a couple things. You need to fill out the form. And if you need that, you can follow us on social media, our Facebook, our Instagram, and you can DM us and we'll give you that link and you can find all that information there. But you need to fill out the form, you need to pay the $20, and you need to sign the liability form. If you don't do all three of those things, we're not gonna be able to let you go. So make sure you do all three of those things if you want to go. And I can't wait to see you guys Sunday. I can't wait to see you guys for Adventure Park in September. And I can't wait to try to plan on getting back to somewhat of normalcy here. I'm praying for you. I love you. If you need anything, come see us. We'll be happy to help you in any way we can. Until Sunday, next family, I'll see you next time.